Hello, Yossi. All right, can you hear me? Hello, Yossi, your mic is off. Can you hear me? Uh-oh, apparently you can't.
Shalom. I think we're live now.
We
And
are. Can you
welcome.
hear me? No?
Yeah, it's working.
Okay.
Shalom, welcome to another Hakham Jo podcast for lamnetwork.tv. I'm Yossi, and this is Mark. We hope you're doing very well, having a good week. We are well and truly into the period, the counting of the Omer right now. We talked a lot about some things relevant to Messianic believers last week with regards to what the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth meant for an Orthodox Jew, from an Orthodox Jewish point of view. And we talked about that, the idea that being hung on a tree is the only way for a tzaddik, for a holy man, to get into Hades, to get into the grave. And since the grave cannot hold a holy man, that those who are in the grave get a chance to come out of the grave following the holy man as his disciples, as the followers of the disciples of the holy man. So the only question really is, how do we know that Jesus was holy? What if he was just wicked and he went into the grave because he's hung on the tree? And the answer is, because of his resurrection, according to Orthodox Judaism, any Jew who comes back from the dead, and believe it or not, in Orthodox Judaism, this is not uncommon. It's quite common. No, it's not common, but it's not unheard of. There are quite a few people who we know of who come back from the dead. And this is only possible if that person, if that rabbi, is a particularly holy person, a tzaddik. And if they're a tzaddik, then they can come back. But if they're not tzaddik, they can't come back. So in a sense, you can say, if you ever see a dead relative, a ghost of a dead relative, in Judaism, that means that dead relative was a saint, was a holy person. If the dead relative is not behaving like your dead relative, but is behaving more like an animal, then that would be because your dead relatives was a dibuk instead. So that person actually was so full of demons that they became just a demon when they died instead. A demon being an unclean spirit. We call them dibukim, sticky spirits. So then I suppose the argument can come back, was Jesus a tzaddik or a dibuk? Because if he was a tzaddik, then he can come back from the dead. And a dibuk also is a spirit who's refused to rest, if you like. So then was Jesus like a spirit who was a dibuk if he came back? And the difference is here. If you are hung on a tree, you get sent to Hades, or that is Sheol, the underworld, the grave, or hell, as you ought to call it in English. You get sent to Sheol. You get sent to the underworld. If you're a dibuk, you don't come out of the underworld again. That's it. You're staying there. You can't come back out of the underworld. So if Jesus of Nazareth rose from the dead, he's a tzaddik. If he was hung on a tree, he went to the underworld. The underworld couldn't hold him. Therefore, he's definitely a tzaddik, not a dibuk. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are arguments that you might come across if people are arguing. If you get into the deep nitty-gritty spiritual detail of Judaism, you might get some people saying, "Well, was he a tzaddik or was he a dibuk?" Yeah.
We actually talked about this on a couple of my other shows.
Yes.
This past week. As a matter of fact, I'm now adding the two shows that I do after this every week. I've kind of added a segment called Yossi's Update.
Okay.
And we discuss the things that I'm learning here.
Yep.
discuss with my co-hosts on my other shows. And this is one of the things that I brought up of being cursed as the man hung on a tree, and nobody had ever heard your perspective on it before, and it
so
made
nobody had
a lot of sense to them as we talked through it.
So what is it exactly that nobody had ever heard, that somebody who's accursed is not going to get a place in Olam Haba?
No, they had not heard that. They just heard that, you just accept the fact that, okay, he's cursed by God, but
what does
curses can be broken, and so they just assume, because nobody has ever taught us that we just assume what we've been taught.
Can curses be broken?
Can curses be broken?
So they said,
there's generational curses that go for many generations, but
if you're hung on a tree,
yeah, that's a different story.
Excuse me, I just have to turn on camera because I realized that my computer is not plugged in, and if I don't plug it in, it's going to close down.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. I think we all agree there's so many things that we've been taught through the years of that the people who taught us really didn't have that kind of a background to let us know these type of things. And that's what I love about Yossi, is he brings up stuff that, we've heard of, but we don't know the depths of some of these things that we've heard of, or the actual background, or the actual perspective that they're taking from Jewish culture, for a lack of a better way to say it.
I think that the difference is that a lot of the time when a Christian comes across something, or somebody from a Christian background, a Messianic, comes across something which they don't understand, they try to assume it away or forget about it. Where in Judaism, we cannot do that. You're not allowed to assume something away or forget about it. It becomes a bone of contention that you have to go back to the yeshiva and you have to argue over it with your chavarim, and you have to push the rabbi, and the rabbi has to give you an answer. And if you have more knowledge, you have to push back as well. So there's a lot of pushback in Judaism.
Yeah.
So the first pushback should be, if somebody is cursed by being hung on a tree, how do they escape that curse? That's the first pushback. That curse is permanent. There's no way that they can prove that they've escaped that curse. Unless they come back to life, then they can prove that curse is broken. The curse is broken.
Because they're Zadok.
Yeah. And if they were a Dibuk, they would be stuck in the curse. They wouldn't be able to come back. Right. A Dibuk can haunt this world. It can haunt people, but only before it goes to hell. If you hang it on a tree, it's guaranteed gone to hell. It's not coming out. It's trapped there now. You've imprisoned it. You've cursed it. So the real question really is to identify whether Jesus was coming back as a demon after he came back from the dead, or whether he came back as a tzaddik. Is number one, was he hung on a tree? If he was, then he came back as a tzaddik. And number two, did he actually come back at all? Because if he was hung on a tree, then he should be trapped in hell if he was a wicked person. But if people saw him come back, then he was a tzaddik. So the real question is, did anybody really see him come back? How do we know this? And who can we trust? Whose words can we trust? We got the four Gospels. We've got a lot of reports of people saying that he came back, but they were all his disciples. What we do have from Orthodox Judaic point of view is Jacob Enden and the Tosafists and Rashi, and that tradition which we call the Petach Hamor tradition, which is why we call this channel, this program, the Petach Hamor podcast, is because it goes back to that concept. The name Petach Hamor, part of this Ashkenazi Jewish tradition, which goes back, ultimately then goes to the Romaniot tradition which goes back to first century Palestine. So you have a lineage of the Ashkenazi tradition, comes from first century Palestine through the Romanian Judaism and then into Ashkenazi Judaism. And in this line, in this tradition, not in the Sephardic tradition, not in any other tradition, but in this lineage, we have the stories about the Petach Chamor. They do have Petach Chamor in others, but the story about the Petach Chamor is in Siman number 191 of the Sefer Hasidim by Yehuda HaHasid. And he says in this Siman that Petach Chamor is the name given, although it means the firstborn donkey. Remember that donkey is the only non-kosher animal which is holy enough to be redeemed. None of the other animals are or righteous enough to be redeemed. None of the other unkosher animals are righteous enough to be redeemed, but the donkey is. So that's interesting. It's not kosher, but it is righteous, and therefore it is redeemed. This is very interesting. So it's not Jewish, but it's still righteous, and therefore it can be redeemed. This is a very important characteristic. That the name Petach Chamor was given to Simon Peter and the righteous teachers from who are said to be the ones who wrote the Evangelion. And we also have the story of the origin of the Evangelion, that's the New Testament Evangelion. The authors of the New Testament did so. They authored it in order to save the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and they did a good job for Israel by splitting off from the Jewish synagogue wicked Jews who were basically Jewish because of their nationality, but they were not Jewish in their belief. They had abandoned Orthodox Jewish traditions, Jewish beliefs, oral Torah, and they had taken a nationalistic approach to things. They are considered to be apostate, apikuris. They have lost the essence of Judaism and the essence of being Jewishness, and they have become idolaters of the flesh, idolizing their genes, their ancestry, their line. So this kind of Jew brings curses upon Orthodox Jews. Even today, Orthodox Jews suffer because of the other kind of Jew who does terrible things in the world, brings a bad response from the world against the Jews, and then we are the ones who get beaten up for it. That's always been the case. So we get curses upon us because of the bad behavior of apostate Jews. So by separating off the apostate Jews from Israel and by making them into Noahites, the disciples of Jesus of Nazareth did a good thing. They actually saved the Jews from destruction by the Romans, which is what we believe would have happened. So we have this tradition. It's a long tradition. And most prominent in this tradition is Jacob Emden, who wrote an absolutely clear and unambiguous commentary on Paul. That's Paul of Tarsus, St. Paul, as you call him, Paul of Tarsus. And said that he was a righteous teacher, a righteous Pharisee who was teaching the truth and teaching Noahites the truth. So thanks to this lineage, we know that the authors of the Evangelion were righteous Jews who were speaking the truth and who were doing good to save the Jews. And Paul says that 500 people saw Jesus alive at the same time, and the Gospels, of course, all say that they saw him alive. So in our tradition, in the Petach Chamor tradition, in the tradition of the Eastern Ashkenazim, of the Litvak Perushim, of the Hasidei Ashkenaz, of the Tosafists, of Rashi, of the Romanian Jews, Jesus came back to life. He came back from the grave. That is indisputable, unless you want to say that all of those people that I just mentioned, all of those Jewish tradition lineage, were all liars, were all deceivers. And if you say that, then how can you even call yourself a Jew? So we have this. This is the argument that you can have. This is the correct Orthodox Jewish argument. Then, of course, you say, well, I mean, we've been through this before, Mark, so many times, but there's always going to be a new viewer who hasn't heard the story. And they'll say, but I've heard so many Jews saying bad things about Jesus, that he's boiling in excrement and blah, blah, blah. Because it says so in the Talmud. And that is not the same Jesus. That is a different Jesus, specifically identified as the son of Miriam Magdala. Magdala, this is Magdalena. Can you hear that? This is Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
Specifically Magdalena. Magdalena's son was named Jesus after Magdalena's teacher. Magdalena's son was a wicked Jesus. He did evil things, and he is the one who is boiling in excrement, which is basically hell.
Wow.
That's the punishment in hell. Because he was hung on a tree, and he didn't get out of hell. He's still in hell. So there was actually Onkelos, before he converted to Judaism. Onkelos actually managed to summon him from hell once, because he was trying to get advice. He was into necromancy and things like this, and he was trying to speak to dead spirits to find out what should be his attitude towards Jews and Judaism. And he actually summoned the son of Magdalena from hell once and asked him, "What's your punishment?" And he said, "Boiling in excrement." And he said, "So what shall I do about the Jews?" And he said, "Don't harm them, because God's favor is upon them, and you can't harm these people." So we get from this that having been hung on a tree, Magdalena's son basically kind of repents while he's in hell, or at least has a positive attitude that you shouldn't harm the Jews when he talks to Onkelos. Eventually, Onkelos converts to Judaism and becomes a very famous rabbi. But before he converted, he was into necromancy, and he tried to summon this. So, and how did he summon Yeshu Notzri? He summoned Yeshu Notzri. The tradition goes, this is not in the Talmud, this is an oral Torah. The tradition goes that how did he summon Onkelos? Sorry, how did Onkelos summon Yeshu Notzri? He summoned Yeshu Notzri by studying Torah on Mitternacht, that is the night of the Tukufat of Tevet, when we are not allowed to study Torah. We do Bittul Torah instead. We don't study it, because if you study Torah on Mitternacht, then you can actually summon the spirit of Yeshu Notzri from hell, basically, from boiling in excrement. Okay, so unusual things, I'm sure. Wow. Christian's like, what's all this about?
Yeah.
But that's because we don't deny in Judaism that people can do wicked things, necromancy, playing with demons and things like that. Demons are real, evil spirits are real. Just that there's no reward in it for you. All you're doing is damaging your eternal soul, and you might be told a ton of lies. So there's nothing you can really trust in that situation.
Okay.
Anyway.
Extended question here based on all of this. How do we look at Nicodemus then? He must have been a Zadok also, because Yeshua brought him back,
You're talking about Lazarus, right? Lazarus.
I said, what did I say? Nicodemus? I meant Lazarus.
Yeah, Lazarus.
Sorry, I'm looking at one thing and
that's okay. No, it's
another.
fine.
Sorry.
So Lazarus.
Right.
Yes, well, the idea is, I suppose, here that Lazarus was brought back from the grave, as opposed to he brought himself back from the grave.
Right.
If you can bring yourself back, or God brings you back, then that's your proof of your tzaddik status.
Okay.
Whereas Lazarus was raised from the dead by a tzaddik. In other words, it's a kind of a case of healing. Although they say that he was already 3 days in the tomb, and he'd already begun to stink. Right. So there's a kind of a time reversal here, controlling of time. And we hear about that in some of the miracle workers in the Talmud and the Jewish tradition. We hear about controlling time, or local control of time. And we also hear about in the Torah as well, where the sun stood still and the time was controlled. So, but these are things which can happen if God hears the prayer of a holy person, of a tzaddik. So the holy person can reverse the time, reverse the flow of time locally.
Wow.
This is not something which is difficult for a Jew to believe in, but maybe it's bizarre for a non-Jew to believe in, that the local flow of time can be reversed by a tzaddik's prayer.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So he comes back out from the grave. He comes back to life in a different way. It's quite interesting when Jesus comes back to life, the grave is opened and they don't even see him. He's not in the tomb. The tomb is empty. They say that the story says in the Evangelion that the angel came down. This is from Matityahu, from Matthias. You call him Matthew. It's actually funny you call him Matthew because in the Bible it identifies the author of the Gospel of Matthew in the book of Acts, and it specifically says that they were going to choose Barnabas or Matthias, Matityahu, because one of them had to give witness, having to testify to everything that they had seen from the beginning. And they chose Matityahu, and that's where the Gospel of Matthew comes from. And despite the name being given Matthias, people still call the Gospel of Matthew rather than Matthias, and they still think it's got something to do with the Levi Matthew, the tax collector, who is actually not the one who was chosen to testify concerning all things from the beginning as an eyewitness. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know the verse I'm talking about?
I do. Matter of fact, I heard something to this years ago, but I'm trying to remember now the same thing. Yeah,
it's in the. Okay. I think it's chapter 1 of the book of Acts, and it basically identifies the author of the book of Matthew. So anyway, Matthew is the that's the Matthew which is spoken of, and in that Gospel of Matthew, I think it's that Gospel of Matthew. I might be confused, but I think it's that one. It says that an angel came down, and they saw the angel come down, and he removed the stone from the tomb. And he sat on it, and the guards became like dead men. And then the angel said to the women, "Go inside and see, he's not there." This is very different from Lazarus, where Jesus tells them, "Remove the stone." And so they remove the stone, and then he says, "Lazarus, come out." And Lazarus comes out of the tomb. In this case, the angel removes the stone and says, "People, go in, he's not there." And they go in and he's not there. So the tomb was sealed. The stone was closed over the tomb. He was put in there and it was sealed. Then it was removed and they see he's gone already. So nobody witnesses the coming out of the tomb of Jesus, but then they see him alive in different places.
Right.
This is interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just it's a kind of like a different kind of resurrection. The one comes out, he removes the stone and he comes out, and the other, he removes the stone and tells them to go in and he's not there. So it's a very different kind of resurrection.
Right. Then
you also have the little girl who was dead as well, and he brought the little girl back to life.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Yes. That's true. Yes.
And I think she's not the only one. I think there was another one as well. Maybe Jairus' son or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Jairus had a son who was dead, and the centurion had a servant who was dying or dead. And all these people came back to life. So there's lots of examples of raising from the dead. But Lazarus is the most remarkable one because he was dead for 3 days. Right. He was in the tomb for 3 days and 3 nights, and he came out of the tomb. Unlike Jesus, who wasn't in the tomb for 3 days and 3 nights. So when Jesus says this wicked generation shall have no sign except the sign of Jonah, who was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights, he's referring to the resurrection of Lazarus. Lazarus is the sign of Jonah, who comes out of the tomb after 3 days and 3 nights. And that is the big thing. That's why everybody's celebrating and saying, here he is, the Messiah has come. And then Jesus goes into the tomb, and then on the third day, on the first day he goes in, he's in on the second day, and on the third day he comes out. That's literally 2 nights. that's 2 nights in 1 day, or half and half and 2 nights. So it's not he's not the sign of Jonah. This is very important to be precise about these things. The sign of Jonah was the sign of Lazarus being raised from the dead. That was the big sign that everybody would see. And was indisputable, which is why it also became necessary for people to try and kill Lazarus as well, because he was the big witness that everybody knew that he was dead and had heard that he died, and now he was alive again. And if they saw him alive again, they would know. It's like, but you were dead. We were at your funeral, so it became necessary to try and get rid of Lazarus as well. It mentions that. I don't remember which verse in the Bible, but it mentions that somewhere in the Bible.
I can look it up. But one other thing that comes to my mind is that when Yeshua was crucified, that the temple screen was torn, and that those that were dead rose and came up out of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. We should probably look at that verse because that's another one. It looks like it says that it happened. They raised from the tomb on the day of his execution. But if you read it carefully, you see that he doesn't say that. He's actually referring to when, I think he says, when Jesus rose, many of those who had died came back to life. So this is again in the Gospel of Matthew.
27.
Is it 27? Mm-hmm.
I think so. Often termed physical resurrection day, where the graves were open and the bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. So Matthew 27:51 to 53.
Can we put it on like a Bible hub on the screen?
Yeah, let me get this. Yeah, let me get it here. Bible hub. All right. Let me share screen. Here. Okay, Matthew 27:51. Come on. Add the stage. Come on. Supposed to. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Okay. What else do you want? One a little bigger?
I can't see it yet, but it'll come.
At that moment, you can't yet. Okay.
Not for me. No, not yet.
How's that?
It's
okay.
It's still got the little wheelie thing spinning around. It'll come eventually.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, it says at that moment the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rocks split. Let's see here. No, we don't want to make some noise. Just go to the next one. 52. And the tombs broke open. The bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. Get off my screen. Is that what it was? There's 53. They came out of the tombs after Jesus' resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared to many people. You're muted. Yossi, you're muted. Yossi, you're muted. Yossi, you're muted. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Some delays there. So what he does is in verse 52, he makes the statement, and in verse 53, he clarifies the time of the event. So he says that they came out of tombs. Many of those who had fallen asleep were raised, and he clarifies this after Jesus' resurrection, when they had come out of the tombs. They entered the holy city. So he's clarifying that the time of their resurrection was also the time of Jesus' resurrection. So this is also interesting. It's not saying that this actually happened at the time that an earthquake happened, that the temple split, that the veil split, and then these came out all at the same time on the Friday at 3:00. It all happened. It's rather saying that this event also took place, that those who were dead came back to life. And that sentence there in the Gospel of Matthew is what I was talking about with regards to the harrowing of hell, which is something which the Messiah has to do. He has to go and preach to those who are in the tomb, and he has to release them from prison of the tomb. And so Matthew is saying, just in this sentence, in these two sentences, 52 and 53, chapter 27, verse 52, 53, Matthew is saying this prophecy was fulfilled. That's what he's saying.
Okay.
Which is something which we kind of forget about, that there are too many cases where the Messiah has to come back from the dead. There are too many cases where he has to go into the grave, preach in Hades, and come back. And we spoke about it last week, and I can't stop saying it because it's too puzzling. It's such an amazing solution to an impossible puzzle. And you couldn't imagine it until it happened. You couldn't imagine the solution to this puzzle until it happened. Looking back, you can say, okay. But before it happened, you couldn't imagine. How is it possible that the Messiah, who is a Sadiq, is going to go into Hades? You couldn't imagine. How is it possible that he's going to manage to get into the prison where all the wicked souls are held and trapped? How is he going to do that? He's a holy man. He can't go there.
So let's see. And
the answer is
Ephesians
by the tree.
4.
What are we on?
It says,
Ephesians?
but to each one of us grace has been given yes, Ephesians 4. And I'm starting at verse 7.
Okay.
And I can put, let's see. Well, I'll just read it. But to each one of us grace has been given as Christ apportioned it. This is why it says, when he ascended on high, he took many captives and gave gifts to his people. What does he ascended mean except that he also descended to the lower earthly regions? He who descended is the one who ascended higher than all the heavens in order to fill the whole universe. So Christ gave himself gave the apostles, the prophets, evangelists. Yeah. Okay.
This is also a deep.
There you go. That
teaching.
I assume, because the way I've been taught is that when he went to hell, he led the people out, and that is the people that came up out of the graves and walked around.
Yeah, and that's what Paul is referring to in Ephesians chapter 4 as well. Can you hear me? You can hear me?
Yes. We got lag.
I see.
There's
a lag. I see. There's a lag. Okay, so so that's exactly it. That's what Paul is referring to. That's what Matthew is referring to. This is actually what the Psalm is referring to, the valley of the shadow of death. This is also what, of course, Isaiah is referring to. Basically, the Messiah must die. He will go into Hades, that is Sheol, the grave. He will preach to the captives of the grave, and he will release the captives from the grave. And the question before it happened is, how on earth can the Holy One of the Lord, how can the Holy One go into the grave which is unholy? And how can the grave catch him? How can he be held there? How can he go into not just the ground, but into Hades, where the souls are trapped? Because his soul is not trapped. His soul should go to Olam Haba. But instead he goes into the grave. How? And the answer is by the tree, by being hung on the tree. There is no other way for a Holy One to go to hell except to become accursed. But by his curse, frees those who are trapped in Hades. Very interesting. I think it's such amazing poetry. I'm really excited by this concept. What an amazing defeat. You didn't break the law. You used the law in every single possible way, like an expert lawyer, who actually is like an advocate on your side in the court, then uses the law you think against you, but actually twists the whole thing around, and you're free. It's like, wow. Right. That's so clever.
I'm with you. This is why I love law movies and court movies and things like this. They're my favorite TV shows or movies because they you get to see the workings of the law. And I
It's
think
so
that's
clever.
what makes
Yeah.
me so excited about Torah, is
Yeah.
that it is God's law, and the way it's used. That, I mean, we have Christians that weaponize the law against us and the Jews and everybody to make it, this is the way we interpret it, so this is against you.
Yeah, but their system doesn't stand up because the Torah has been abolished. So how can they, in their system? So it's like, okay, it's been abolished, but you're going to cherry pick what you want to support your position. Well, anybody can do that. That's not being a good lawyer. That's just picking and choosing which parts of the law you want. But being a perfect lawyer is using the law and then turning it against you. It's very clever. And you understand that this world essentially is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This world is the tree of the serpent, which we got trapped into when we ate from the fruit of this tree, and we became essentially trapped in the serpent's world, unable to escape until we have paid our penalty, which is death. We have to suffer and die here, and then we can get out. And so when at Mount Sinai, with defeat of Pharaoh, see, Pharaoh is a symbol of almost the serpent's authority in human form. That's what Pharaoh symbolizes. He even has this serpent hat, and he has this kind of serpent headdress like a cobra. And that's the Pharaoh's sort of costume, is he's saying, I'm dressed like the serpent. And it's like he symbolizes the serpent, and the overthrowing of the serpent's representative, Pharaoh, is followed by the giving a law, like a contract, like a treaty, which is agreed to be something which is actually going to have real power on this world, which belongs to the serpent, which God gave to the serpent before Adam and Chava took from the fruit of the tree of life. This was his world. We came into the serpent's world. But the serpent is defeated in the symbol of Pharaoh and his armies by the column of fire, preventing them, and then drowned in the sea. And then at Mount Sinai, Hashem makes a treaty and says, this is my Torah law, and it will be observed on the planet Earth. This will be respected by the evil forces on the planet Earth. The evil forces will not be able to overcome this because they have surrendered and they have signed this treaty. They have ratified this treaty, and they get certain things out of this treaty. In this treaty, some of the things that side, what we call the other side, we call it in Judaism the other side, some of the things the other side get in the Torah is this: cursed is anyone who is hung on a tree. This seems incredibly unjust. And these verses which are unjust are the verses which the other side sort of demanded in their establishment of the treaty. You've got this treaty going on between Iran and America right now. You know, they're trying to hammer out a treaty between the two, and they're trying to think about, you know, what's good for us. What are we going to? And neither side trusts each other, and they want some real solid guarantees. So from the other side's point of view, the other side is all about injustice, is all about trickery, is all about deception, it's all about dishonesty. Okay, and so when they see a verse in the Torah which is like, cursed is anyone who's hung on a tree, they think, this could be good. Anyone hung on a tree, yes, we like that. We like that verse. Put that down in our treaty. They're thinking in their minds, we can get a lot of holy people hung on trees. Right? And Hashem, of course, thinks better and says, fine, I'll put that one down. Cursed is anyone who is hung on a tree. Anyone. And they're like, anyone? And it says, yeah, anyone. Great. We've got we've got them. But they're not thinking. Hashem is planning, this is how I'm going to get all of them free. because they're going to hang the righteous one on a tree. He will be bound and he'll go to Hades, but Hades cannot hold a righteous person. A truly righteous person, Hades cannot hold them. So they can't use the law to hold him because he has to come back. Those who are righteous, part of the Torah. This is rabbinical teaching. The Sadducees don't have this. Sadducees don't think like this. In rabbinical teaching, we understand the promised land is Olam Haba. Olam Haba, the world to come, is the true promised land, not a place in the Middle East. The true promised land is the world to come. The world to come is not a place in the Middle East. It's one day you're going to transform into the world to come. It's literally a new world. Not this planet. It's a new world, another world, a world to come. So for our understanding in the oral Torah, we understand that the promised land, and to receive the promises of God, the righteous person and the proof of this is Moshe Rabbeinu, our Rabbi Moses. Okay, Rabbeinu Moshe he does not enter the promised land. He is buried on Mount Nebo. This is unjust, right? Because he's done so much good for Hashem and for God's people, and yet he doesn't get a place in Olam Haba, the promised land. And the answer is that's correct. If Olam Haba refers to the promised land, as in if the promised land refers to Israel, the land of Israel, then it's unjust. But God is not unjust. Therefore, he does get a place in the promised land. He does get a place in the best promise, which is Olam Haba, the world to come. So therefore, every passage which talks about the blessings given to the children of Israel getting the place in the promised land is understood for a righteous person, meaning you can get a place in Olam Haba. So this is kind of like a little bit covered. There's a nuance to it. There's an interpretation involved in this, and you have to go to the judge and you say, "But judge, isn't it so that these righteous people, if they follow your laws, they will gain a place in the promised land? That the promised land is you're going to fulfill your promise to their ancestors, and you're going to give them that promise?" And the judge is yes, but isn't it so that Moses died on Mount Nebo and he didn't enter the promised land? And the answer is no.
Right.
That he does get a place. It's not unjust. You're interpreting it wrongly.
That's good.
So there's an interpretation
so
here.
Good.
So this is the nuance of the interpretation which the other side, the prosecutor, the Satan, Satan is the prosecutor, the one who attacks you, the one who is your adversary, the adversarial opponent. The prosecutor, Satan, is saying he's thinking that the promised land is a physical place in the Middle East. But the advocate says no, the promised land actually refers to a place in the world to come. So sorry, he was accursed. He does go into the grave, but he was righteous, so he has to come out of the grave again. So sorry. What you thought was a line in the treaty which was going to be serving you and to your purpose and to your agenda turns out to become to our agenda all along. We managed to save everybody this way. Baruch Hashem.
I love it. We use the word righteous a lot, and I wonder how many individual people have their own individual definition of that word. Whenever I use the word or think of the word or hear somebody else use the word, my immediate thought is in right standing with God.
Yes, but that's based on the English language word right. It is a translation of the Hebrew word tzaddik and tzaddikut.
Right.
So what we need to know is, what is tzaddikut? And of course, we can't refer to the English word right in order to help us in this.
Okay.
But the reason why they chose righteousness as a translation for tzadikut ultimately is because it is to do what is right. It is the one who does what's right. So a tzaddik is somebody who is right. So that's basically it. If you know
but wouldn't that also mean that you were in right standing with God?
Of course, you would be in right standing with God.
Okay.
But it's not because of grace or chen, as we say. No, you're not righteous because of chen. You're righteous because you did the right thing.
Okay.
So you can, and how do you do the right thing? What is the right thing? This is a good question. So what is the right thing? To follow all the laws of the Torah?
I would say that would be doing the right thing.
That's a trick question. It's not that.
Okay.
Is to do the right thing, to repent. Repentance is very good, but that's not it either.
Okay.
To do the right thing is to believe in the revelation in Mount Sinai. To believe that Hashem revealed himself at Mount Sinai and gave us this contract. That this is a true event that actually happened, and that the sapphire throne really did come down from heaven over that mountain at that point. If we believe in that, that is righteousness. So in fact, we have something more in common, if you like, with the teachings of who was it? I don't remember if it's Luther or Calvin, but one of those people who says that you are saved by faith. And this is also the concept in St. Paul. Your righteousness is by faith. Mm-hmm. So what faith are we talking about in Judaism? It's like, that's right. Righteousness comes by faith in Mount Sinai, in the events at Mount Sinai. And if you believe in the events in Mount Sinai, then Baruch Hashem, you have tzadikut. So you're saved by faith. That's Orthodox Judaism. Sounds very Christian, but that's only because Paul, who brought up this idea, was an Orthodox Jew. He was a Hillelite. He was a Scribal Pharisee, and so was Jesus. The Scribal Pharisees are the ones in the right corner. That's why Jesus appoints the Scribal Pharisees to be the head of his church. He tells his apostles, the Scribal Pharisees are the ones who sit in the seat of Moses. So he says to his apostles, do as they say. So he definitely appointed the Scribal Pharisees as the head of the church. And so according to the Scribal Pharisees, and Paul was one of them, it's belief in the revelation of Mount Sinai, which is what makes you righteous.
Okay.
Doing the law after that is simply kind of a symbol of your faith. That's really important. Every law is nothing but a symbol of faith.
I love that. Let me get that down. I've got 2 pages in notes now.
Every observance of any law, whenever you, so I say that keeping kosher has to be done by Noahides on a Sabbath. It doesn't have to be done by Noahides during the week. Otherwise, you're not keeping the law of eating treif, which is actually also a commandment to Noahides, that you must also eat treif or accept treif. So, but you must keep holy the Sabbath day, and treif is not holy. Therefore, you have to be kosher on a Saturday. This is the way I interpret it from Noahides. So you must have a kosher Sabbath. You must be tahor for Sabbath. You have to wash yourselves, wash your clothes. You have to have a kosher Sabbath, and then you can go back and be unkosher all week. So why do you do this? As a symbol of your faith.
I like it. I love it.
And Jews have to wear a lot of symbols of our faith. But Noahides don't have so many symbols they have to wear. But they still do have to wear some symbols of faith. You have to wear some symbols of faith. And so this is why, we don't have to wear a Magen David, a little. Sometimes you see Jews wearing a little Jewish star on a necklace,
Right.
like Christians would wear a cross on a necklace.
Right.
It's like, actually,
Right.
no, that's not Jewish. That's not in the Torah. Our symbols of faith are already given to us. Keeping kosher, that's a symbol of faith. Not a little star on a necklace. No, that's not in the Torah. That's not a symbol of faith. We have our symbols of faith. In the Catholics, they do the cross, yes. Well, we wash our head and our feet and our arms. And that's actually, I say that's where the cross comes from.
I see. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
this is the symbol of faith. Washing your head, washing your feet, washing your arms, your hands and your feet and your head. As Peter says when Jesus goes to wash his feet, he says, no. And then he says, we have nothing coming. He says, okay, then wash my hands and my head as well. Head, feet, arms. There you got the Jewish, the symbol of the cross. These Christian symbols of faith are remnants of a Jewish practice which has been lost long, long ago. A long time ago, it was a Jewish practice which is Noahide Judaism, and they've forgotten these things and they've created new meanings for them, new names and new meanings. And this tends to happen when a symbol. We're running out of time, but I'll try and wrap this up quickly.
You're okay. You're okay.
This tends to happen when a symbol is so great that it can take on so many meanings that eventually you lose the core meaning, which was the root of the symbol. And then that's dangerous. When you lose the core meaning, which is the root of the symbol, then you eventually find it impossibly difficult to find that root meaning. And then eventually you can say, why are we crossing ourselves? Let's just throw that away. That's not in the Bible. Actually, it is. It's just you forgot what the root of it is. The root of it is washing your head and your hands and your feet. And that's what the Christians used to do. They used to have this little bowl of holy water, and they used to wash themselves with the holy water before they went into the church, their head and their hands and their feet. They were literally doing the taharat, which a Noahide should do in preparation for Sabbath. But then they moved the Sabbath to a Sunday. And then the holy water got removed as well. And then all they're doing is just this. And they've lost the root of the meaning of their symbol. And so they've lost the symbols of their faith. Eventually they drop it. And other Christian sects say, why are we doing all these rules of men? And they drop these traditions of men. And they drop these traditions of men. But that's because the symbol was anyway a really good symbol. A really good symbol has many, many meanings. But we must never lose the root meaning. There is always the best meaning for these symbols of faith. And the best meaning is because it comes from the Torah. That's the best meaning.
Wow, I love it.
I can think of some more. Yes. Maybe you can have a look at. So
this is something. Got about 4 minutes.
4 minutes, but it's relevant to today, and I wanted to mention it because I mentioned the first thing was we're into counting the Omer now,
right?
And if you look in, just Google on the internet for a moment, Polish Palm Sunday. I think it's like that. Polish Palms might be enough. PALM. And you'll see something which looks very, very unusual. And what it is actually an Omer. It's a Jewish Omer. When we were counting the Omer, they used to bring the Omer to the temple and used to wave an Omer in the temple. And the Polish Catholics have a tradition of this Omer, which they do during this period of time, this time of the year. And they think it's got something to do with Palm Sunday and all the people waving the... So you could say Polish Palm Sunday is another one you can look for if you want to have a look for it.
I have it here. Ned Zila Palmawa.
And do you see a picture of these beautiful, tall, unusual things in your Google images?
They don't.
There they are. Yeah, you have put that on the screen. Let's put that on the screen.
Okay. I may have it here. Let me see. No.
Those are the eggs.
Oh,
that's Beitza.
No.
That's okay. That's Beitza.
No.
There they are. Look at these things.
This.
Look at these things.
Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Look at these things. Lo Okay, let me see.
We can't see that.
Let me put it up here. There we go.
That's another thing, actually. So there you go. These things that they wave, they think it's Palm Sunday. This is actually coming also from a. If you go back up again, scroll up again, so I can see those things are what we call Omer. Oh, and those are Beitza.
Okay,
so
that.
Yeah, that. Those are the Omers, and you can find lots of different pictures of these, but they call them. They think it's palms, and they say it's Palm Sunday. We wave these things at Easter because of Palm Sunday, and actually they've what they're proving is that their origins were of some kind of heretical Judaic origin, and they are waving the Omer, which is actually what you're supposed to do. The first fruit offering, come and bring the Rachel Katzia. So they got Omers there, and if you go back up again, you saw the Easter egg. That Easter egg, that's not an Easter egg. Those are called Beitza. That's a Jewish tradition. That's
right. That's right.
So, but people lose these meanings. They lose the origin of these thoughts. And why do we have Beitza? I mean, Beitza's got a lot of interesting meanings, but when somebody's sitting Shiva, we tend to give them a boiled egg or a roast egg because it's supposed to be comforting. And it's a meal, but it's difficult to eat. So they have traditions which have been, that's the end of that. They have these traditions which have been corrupted, and their meanings have been lost, and they've taken on new meanings. But we must never forget the root meaning of these things, which actually isn't evident. Oh, there's the basket of the food that you would take to the temple for the first fruit offering, the first fruit basket. This is also from the Torah. So,
it contains ham, sausage, eggs, and a sugar lamb, and horseradish.
Horseradish. There you go.
Right. Okay, we got to go.
Yeah. It's obviously not the ham, but everything else is good. So good. These things are things which must not lose the original meaning. Otherwise, you've lost everything.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Symbols.
All right, brother. We got to go. Love you, man. Once again, it's an amazing show, and got 2.5 pages of notes.
Take care of you. Right, see you next time. Then
we'll see you next week. God bless. And we are out of here. God bless, brother.
If you missed today's show or want to watch it again or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lambnetwork.tv, where you will find this show and all other live Lamb Show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell somebody about the Messianic Lamb Network.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.